Welcome back to Mums on a Mission. I'm your host, Julie Hatch, and I'm really glad to have you here today with me for this eighth episode, which is called How Do You Show Up in Your Parenting Life? And I'm going to be talking about how you show up as a parent to yourself and to your children and to your family. And I'm going to talk about rules and boundaries with kids. So, how do you show up? Consciously connecting with your kids, you first need to consciously connect with yourself. Know where you're coming from, what your triggers are, what your challenges are, your weaknesses, what your strengths are, just as we like to know that about our kids and parent according to those strengths and challenges that they have. We need to understand our own challenges and strengths and motivators and that kind of thing. And that's both in general, what are we coming from? What was our childhood like? What are we bringing into our parenting life based on what we experienced as kids? But even it applies to just daily life. For instance, coming home from work and you had a really bad day and you're really irritable and frustrated and hungry and tired, and it's not the best way to show up to your kids. So it is usually helpful if you have a bad day to take some time sitting in your car or wherever you need to go to give yourself some space from that bad day that you had and show up to your kids in a better space. Because again, we want to model to our kids what we want to see them model back to us. We want to show them the ways of being and acting the same as what we want to see in them. And while we can't always be on our best perfect behavior and the perfect moms, it's helpful to at least know where you're at in any given moment, any given day, any given year, where you're at and what's going on inside of you. So before you enter into a challenging situation, whether there's chaos going on at home or kids are fighting or kids are beginning to fight with you, you want to know where you're at, and which means that you want to be prepared to not react, not fight back. You want to come in to show up for your kids in the best possible way is to be grounded in yourself. Take a deep breath, not be ready to fly off the handle, quite the opposite. You want to be more centered, more grounded, taking a deep breath so that you're in a position of responding to them rather than reacting. It's so easy and natural to just react to having your buttons pushed. For one thing, if you know what your buttons are, you're better prepared to not react. But also when your buttons do get pushed, which is inevitable, that you take a breath, you don't react right away, but you're ready to just respond from a place of groundedness and centeredness. Taking a deep breath goes a long way, or 3 deep breaths. For one thing, that gives a little bit of time and space between what it is that just pissed you off and you're about to react to, and what you're going to do about that, whether it's responding or hopefully not reacting. And this comes to a little bit, I want to talk about styles of parenting. There are part of what you bring to the table as a parent is your style of parenting. And included in your style of parenting are your own values and your programs. So this goes along with creating boundaries and rules and your style of parenting. Whether you're a really lenient parent or whether you're a really strict parent, it's important to understand what type you are and what you're bringing to the table in your parenting style. And your parenting style and the boundaries and the rules that you have in your house are reflect your values, what your family values are, what you think is important to have in your house or go on in your house, or important for your kids to pick up and learn from you. And every household is different. Some households think that academics are top priority, and so they are programming their kids to do well in school and to take pride in their work at school and to work really hard at school. and because academics are important to the parents, and so that is a value that they bring into the home, and it sets into being a program for the kids. They say, okay, academics is it. Academics is what's most important in our family. Or maybe it's sports. Maybe dad was a football player and really wants his sons to be football players, and then the programming is all about sports. And even if it's not football, then some other kind of sport. If sport is really held to be really valuable in the house, then that's a program that the child is going to pick up. So make sure that the programming that you want your child to instill in themselves, make sure it's the kind of programming that you want them to have. What kind of values are important? Because there are other programs that aren't so good. Sometimes there are some families that believe in, especially the fathers, believe in strong disciplining, hitting, spanking, belittling, yelling at, being violent with. That's probably what they grew up with, and so it's their program, and they are passing that on to the kids, and that is not a good program to pass along to your kids. But that's what they're going to pick up. They're going to pick up that is okay to hurt other people. They were likely to turn into bullies. So the point is just be aware of the values that you are teaching your kids and what you think is important in your house. And that's going to turn into their program. And what they take on as a program in their lives when they're young is going to have huge influence and outcomes in their lives as they grow up and into adulthood. So we are our programs. We are how we were programmed as kids, and we can try to shake that, and we can try to undo some of the program we don't like, but that's not easy. So it's easiest and best to start off with good programming for our kids. What we think, how do we want them to be? What are our values? What do we want them to think of as important? For instance, I programmed into my kids that money, yes, you need to be able to support yourself, but money is not the be all and end all. Money does not buy happiness, and I showed them many examples of how that was. So I try to program into them that yes, you need to be able to support yourself. So you need money to be able to do that, but money is not a priority. Having a lot of money is not a high priority, in my opinion. So I try to instill that into my kids. So the styles of parenting, there are a lot of different styles of parenting. I'm going to talk about three, just real quickly, about three different types of parenting. One is called curling, which is a phrase coined by some European. You know, curling, the Olympic sport where they sweep the ice so that the little rock or whatever can go smoothly on down the path, and let it get as far as possible, and I guess that's who wins. But the idea is that the player is frantically sweeping and clearing the way for this rock to be able to smoothly move on down the ice. So curling parents are parents who clear the path so that their kids have no obstacles and they have just a clear, smooth path into adulthood. No bumps along the road, and the parents are the ones that are frantically clearing the way so that they have the nice, easy, happy childhood into adulthood. And that just does not prepare your child for adulthood or real life at all. It is doing them a big disfavor. It's hard to see your child suffer. You want to do everything you can for your child to make it so that they don't cry, they don't suffer, they don't get hurt, they don't fall down, they don't get humiliated, they don't feel like they're failures. All those horrible things that we know are usually inevitable in life. It's so hard to see your children go through this, but it's so important that they experience obstacles and ups and downs and bumps in the road and falling down and failing and all of those kinds of things. And the time is when they're kids, because then they learn how to be resilient and how to bounce back from those difficulties while they still have their parents supporting them, living at home with their parents who can support them and figure out how to make it through all these challenging times. I heard somebody say recently that, we all say we want to have our kids be happy and grow up to have happy lives. And that's just not right. Happy is That's not what you want to have your kids be happy. Fulfilled, yes. Satisfied, content, all of those things certainly. But happy is what comes from drugs or gambling or great sex or alcohol. Or happy is a response to some kind of an external factor that makes you feel good for a little while and then it's gone. But rather, you want to have in your children a sense of worth and content and feeling good about their lives just the way that they are from inside. So having their paths cleared for them, it's not really happiness. It's unrealistic, and it's not. It just isn't real life. The ups and downs and the difficulties and the challenges are what make up the fabric of their life, and it's what the more challenges that they face and that they can get over and through and bounce back from, the more successful they're going to be in life, and the more content they're going to be in their life, because they're going to know how to handle the challenges and the difficulties. So the curling parents is not the best way to go. On the other hand, there is also then the controlling parent who is not allowing enough autonomy in the child, is not letting the child express themselves or try things or experiment with things or go out and explore. The parent is being too controlling, and so then the child learns nothing about boundaries there. The boundaries are too strict and they don't learn anything. The idea is to let children explore and experiment. That's how they learn about life. And again, if things are too controlling, they don't have the opportunity of bumping up against something and having a hard time and failing and figuring out what to do with that. So controlling, and it doesn't allow the child autonomy and expression of themselves. So controlling isn't all that helpful. And then there's also laissez-faire, which is you just aren't involved and you don't really, you let anything goes. They can do whatever they want, and there's just no rules or boundaries or anything. The kid can just free for all, and it's not that you don't care, but the child doesn't get any feeling of, they need a feeling of some kind of boundaries, that somebody's watching out for them and putting rules in place. So those are the three of what I think are the big types: the curling, the controlling, and the laissez-faire. And so I believe that you want to have some kind of somewhere in between, somewhere in the middle there. And with the style of parenting comes with, how do you enforce rules and boundaries and discipline and that kind of thing. And rules come from boundaries. So boundaries are letting a child know what we think is okay to do and to be in the world, how to be in the world, and what is not okay. And again, it comes from our values and our programming. But we want to keep boundaries open enough to allow for kids to experiment and explore and experience life. Experience is the best teacher for kids. And the job for young kids is to learn about themselves and the world around them through exploration and experiences. And we don't want to impede this by making the boundaries too strict. We don't want to always be saying no, 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 and they really just need to be able to explore. Safety is the one thing where this comes in, or safety comes into this, when you don't want them to be exploring to the point where they are going to get themselves seriously hurt. Mildly hurt is okay. Falling down is okay, but seriously hurt, you do put the control on there and stop that. But otherwise, you really want to let them explore and experiment and experience. Now, about rules, especially in toddler time, is the perfect time to start coming up with rules in the house, because rules are really important for kids to learn how to play by. And I believe that when you have rules in the house, there are two different kinds of rules. There's above the line and there's below the line. And above the line rules are those that are hard and fast rules. They cannot be broken. For instance, you can't go, depending on the age, you can't go running out the front door of the house and go running across the street to your friend's house without letting mom know. Whatever. It's hard and fast rules that are not okay for them to break. And these are rules that you have to be prepared to enforce every time they get broken. A 16-year-old going out and drinking and driving, that is not okay. That has to be enforced. That is not okay. That's one that you have to consistently back up. Or a child constantly hitting their baby brother or sister. That's not okay. That's not safe for the baby brother or sister. So it needs to be enforced. Have to be on top of it, and you have to enforce it every single time that rule gets broken. You can come up with all kinds of rules. However, these above the line rules that are just non-negotiable, that's what it is. If they're non-negotiable, they just are not okay. So you have to enforce it every single time. You can't back off and say, oh, well, it's okay this time and it's not okay that time, because it has to be consistently enforced. So therefore, you want to make these hard and fast above the line rules few. You don't want a whole lot of them, because it's really important that you stick by them and you enforce them and you're consistent with that. So the fewer you have, the easier it is. So then there are the below the line rules that, you want them to clean up their room or make their bed every morning or pick up their laundry off the floor. Those are rules that are important to you and probably important to follow through with sometimes, but they are not hard and fast. If your child does not pick up their clothes on one day, it's okay. It's not something that you have to enforce about, unless it's really that important to you. But if it's that important to you, then you've got too many rules going on. So there's the hard and fast above the line rules that you have to enforce every single time, non-negotiable. Very few of those. And then there are all the other ones that are below the line that you just have to negotiate and navigate from day to day, from time to time. So whether you are a lenient parent who lets all kinds of things happen, which is okay, or if you are a controlling parent, be aware of what the benefits of each of those are and the drawbacks of each of those, and pay attention to what kind of parenting style that you have, and what style you would like to be or to have, and maybe you modify. I think that generally parents tend to be a little bit too controlling. They, in all areas, both in discipline, but also in just how a child should be, dress, behave, live their life. I think parents can be controlling because they have their own agenda. But again, that's a whole nother topic. So today, that's about it for this episode. Just to wrap up, self-awareness in your relationships with yourself, interactions with your family around you, whether you respond versus react, and how do you show up and be prepared to respond from a conscious, mindful, aware place versus reacting from an unconscious, mindless place. It takes work, it takes practice, no doubt, but remembering to take a breath and practice it, responding rather than reacting, and understand where you're coming from is a good start. Your style of parenting, understand your style, whether you want to modify it, how is it benefiting the child, how is it not benefiting your child. And finally, the rules and the boundaries, not to be too restrictive. Allow them to explore and experiment, because that's how they learn. And that's also how they grow and develop best. And keep the really strict, non-negotiable rules few, consistent, and clear. That's the other thing I didn't say, is that the rules need to be clear to your child. You need to be explaining to them, to your child, on their level, whatever developmental level they're at, whatever age level they're at, be on their level and make sure that it's clear, and have them repeat back to you those non-negotiable rules, so that you know that they understand what they are. But other than that, it's just a few rules, and be ready to be consistent in enforcing them. But other than that, let them explore and have fun and run around and play, and without a whole lot of restrictions on them. I believe that's another topic I'm going to get into, is free play. Free, unrestricted play is really important for kids' mental health. But that's it for today's episode. Thank you for being here. Please feel free to share, like this, follow me on Facebook or Instagram, And I will see you next time.